Hey everybody, I'm Dan, your friendly fishmonger from dansfish.com, and today I want to answer one of the most frequently asked questions that I get, which is, what should I feed my fish? I have a box of goodies out here, a bag of tricks if you will, so I can show you the different foods that we feed and talk about fish nutrition and feeding aquarium fish in general. There's lots of different varieties of food that you can choose from when you want to feed your fish. There's flake foods, which we all know and love. There are pellet foods, wafers, frozen foods, gel foods, and live foods. I think that covers most of the most common ones. Now, when people ask me, what should I feed my fish? Often what they want to know is, what's the one food I need to buy to feed my fish? And the answer is, there is no one food that is so nutritionally complete that you can feed it and never have to worry. The best thing for fish diets is variety. Feeding lots of different things. So if one food is missing an essential ingredient, then you feed another one and it can make up for it. So I think variety is the key. But with that being said, let's talk about the most common foods that we feed, which are pellets and flakes and wafers. And then we'll get into the frozen and the live foods and the gel foods. I think though most people can walk into their pet store and find some flakes or some pellets. This is a food I really like. It's PE mysis pellets. It's made from freshwater mysis shrimp. This is extreme nano, a very small pellet. You don't have to worry about it getting lodged in the fish's mouth or with rainbow fish getting stuck in their throat. These are algae wafers, which are awesome. The nice thing about algae wafers is they last for a long time in your tank. So fish that take a long time to feed can pick at them for several hours and not have to worry about them kind of disintegrating. This is Hikari micro pellets. This is Hikari Vibra Bites, which I consider a pellet, just a long skinny pellet. So let's dig into these. When choosing a food for your fish, in this case a pellet for your fish, you're looking for a couple things. Number one, will the fish eat it? There might be some really high quality fish foods out there that the fish just aren't going to eat well. So they're not going to do you any good because the fish won't eat them, right? So what's the highest quality food I can get that the fish will eat?
Come here, I'm gonna eat you! I'm bigger than you, I'm higher in the food chain! Get in my belly!
Here's an example. This is an algae pellet, and the first ingredient on this is actually fish meal. The second ingredient is spirulina algae. But I don't mind that. I've tried the algae wafers where the first ingredient is spirulina, and the fish just don't like it. They don't eat it as well. So would that be better for them? Maybe. But I choose this kind of lesser grade, if you will. It's because the first ingredient is not spirulina, it's fish meal, because my fish actually eat it. So I use that. Now I like these when I'm trying to feed gobies, or corridors catfish, or really small nano fish like Boraris, rasbors, things like that. Fish that are slow eaters or need a lot of time to kind of graze on food. Because you put this in the tank and it's not just going to disintegrate quickly like a lot of foods will, like these flakes. Pellets and wafers will keep their shape for quite a while. So that's why I like those. PE mysis pellets are awesome. The first ingredient is mysis shrimp, and they're an invasive shrimp species to a lake up in Canada. There's a company that goes out to this lake in Canada and collects these mysis shrimp that don't belong in that lake and are wreaking havoc on the local ecosystem. Not only are you getting an awesome food for your fish, but you're helping the environment when you feed PE mysis shrimp. So that's why I feed those PE mysis pellets. The fish love them. These are Hikari micro pellets. Honestly, since Extreme came out with the nano pellet, once I run out of the micro pellets from Hikari, I'll probably do away with these. The fish eat these nano pellets really well, and they're very, very nutritious. These are awesome. First ingredient here is krill, second is fish meal, third is squid, and then the fourth is wheat, which is the binder. So that's something we need to understand. When we're feeding pellets or flake foods, there's going to be a binder in the food. This is something that fish don't digest well. Wheat, corn, rice, soybeans, stuff like that. That's not something fish are eating in the natural environment. So their digestive system isn't kind of set up to digest it well. The reason it's put in is because it's those binders that make these wafers and pellets and flakes keep their shape. So they have to put it in, or we wouldn't have this, we just have a powder that fell apart. So when you're looking for a food for your fish, you want to see where is the binder on the ingredient list. If the binder is the first ingredient, you probably don't want to feed that food. If it's the second ingredient, you might not want to feed that food. You want the binder to be pretty far down in the list, and Extreme does that. So they have pretty good quality foods. Here's an example. This is cobalt shrimp pellets. First ingredient is wheat. Second ingredient is fish meal. Third ingredient is de-hulled soybean meal. Then you have wheat middlings, then you have corn. This is not a high quality food, I'm sorry.
What you talking about, Mr. D?
You know, you don't want the first ingredient to be a binder. So look for that. Again, there are some cases where you don't want the first ingredient to be spirulina either, because it won't be as palatable to the fish. So these are the main ones I use. Now let's move on to flakes. There's a few. I like Extreme a lot. I know everyone's saying that and shilling for Extreme these days, but that's because they've come out with really good foods. I'm not paid by them, I'm not sponsored by them, I didn't get this for free. I just really like them. For this flake, first ingredient is krill meal, then fish meal, then herring meal, and then the fourth ingredient is the binder, which is wheat flour in this case. So I really like that food and the fish love it. It's full of flavor. When you open this package to feed it, you smell the krill. It smells very fishy. In fact, when I feed these foods, I come down into the fish room after I've fed. If I leave and come back, it smells pretty bad down here. It smells krilly and fishy, which is exactly what you want.
Pew. Pew. What the?
A couple flake foods that I think do a good job. One is Cobalt Aquatics. Is it the best food ever? Probably not, but remember, I'm feeding a wide variety of foods. So every food I feed doesn't have to be the best. I feed this because I'm like, well, maybe there's something in here that is missing from the others. Why not give it a try? Ingredients list. First ingredient, salmon meal, then mysis, then yeast, which is very good for vitamin B, and then we get into the binder, which is soybean meal. This is spirulina 20 from Zoomed. This is a spirulina flake I really like. First ingredient is salmon meal, second is spirulina, and then we get the binder, which is soy flour. The reason I feed this instead of the spirulina flakes and other foods that are pretty much pure spirulina is, again, the fish just eat it better. So they're getting a little meat in there, but they're getting a good dose of veggies and they'll actually eat it. Now you might notice that a lot of the foods I'm showing you are in sealed bags, either these double sealed freezer Ziploc bags or these that I've sealed with a heat sealer. The reason is, something you need to know about fish food is the quality nutrition degrades with time. The moment you open your container of food or your bag of food and unseal it, oxygen gets in there and starts degrading the nutritional quality. So since I buy in bulk, like this big thing here, it's going to take me several weeks to feed through this. And I don't want this food just sitting out in this container and the nutrition going down. So the first thing to do is, if you buy food in a quantity more than you're going to feed in, let's say, I don't know, a week or two, take it, put it in a sealed bag and put it in your freezer. I've talked to actual fish nutritionists that are in charge of formulating fish foods and have studied the nutrition deeply. And they've told me that as long as it's in the freezer, the nutritional quality is not going to degrade. It would take a long time for it to degrade. So first thing is, even if you get a quality food, if it's old and stale when you feed it, the fish aren't getting quality nutrition. So pick a quality food. You don't want the binder to be at the top of the ingredient list. And then store it properly so your fish have good nutrition. One thing to understand before we move to frozen and live and gel foods, the nice thing about frozen foods and live foods is they're highly palatable. So if you feed an ounce of frozen bloodworms, let's say, one of my favorites, I like the Hikari brand because it's very clean. They do a good job cleaning all the dirt and different organisms out of it. Really like Hikari for bloodworms. If I feed an ounce of this, the fish might only create half an ounce of waste because it's able to digest more of this because there's no binders or artificial stuff in here. And so the fish can digest a lot more of this than they can processed foods because there's nothing artificial in here, there's no binders in here. The fish is naturally going to be eating this in the wild. Its system can digest it really well. So my 3 top frozen foods to feed are number 1, Hikari bloodworms. You can use other brands. This is just the brand I like because they do a good job of keeping it nice and clean. It feeds out really cleanly. Well, fish will go for this naturally. Most fish eat bloodworms and are attracted to that kind of the shape of them. And if you have a fish that you're having trouble feeding, usually frozen bloodworms will do the trick. Now another food that they tend to need to take a little training to learn to eat, but once they do is very good, is frozen brine shrimp. I like the San Francisco Bay brand, Sally's brine shrimp just fine. The Hikari brine shrimp brand is good too. This is really high in fiber. So if you have a fish you want to feed and it's known to get bloat or it's getting backed up or something, this has a lot of chitin in it, a whole lot of fiber to help with that. So it's really healthy for their digestive tract. And then just like we have the PE mysis pellets, we also have just frozen PE mysis shrimp. So these are shrimp they've gone out in that glacier lake in Canada and collected and just flash frozen. So fish eat this really well. I like it over the saltwater mysis shrimp, A, because it tends to be a little smaller, so more fish can fit it in their mouth. It is larger than bloodworms and things, but small for a mysis shrimp. And B, because it's helping the environment when we collect those. Now let's get into the last 2 things, which are gel foods and live foods. Gel foods are, this is a powder, and just like you're making gelatin, right? As a kid, you do the same thing here. You would boil some water in the microwave or on the stove. Once it's nice and hot, you add some of this powder to it, and what results is a gel. And you can cut that gel up into whatever size you want and feed it to your fish. I usually do cubes and drop them in the tank, and the fish just kind of eat on it for a few hours, because it doesn't degrade really quickly. The nice thing about this Repashy gel food is it comes in lots of varieties. This is the community. This is the super green, which is a vegetable-based food for tropheus and other fish like that. And something I really like about Repashy is you can mix stuff into it. So let's say you want to get more veggies to a certain species and you don't want to buy all the different kinds of Repashy. Well, just get the Community Plus and then you can add supplements to it. So when you're making the powder, you can add some spirulina powder to it or some red algae powder to it or whatever you want to supplement it. It's really good for puffers because you can mix crushed oyster shell in it, and then as the puffer's eating the Repashy, it's also crunching on those oyster shells and wearing down its beak. So Repashy is awesome. Just like a nice big pellet, it takes a long time for this to break down in the water. So you can drop it into the tank and the fish can chew on it for quite a long time. Now, if you don't get the water boiling, it won't set as well. Every now and then someone complains that they made Repashy and they put it in the tank and it kind of decomposed. If the water's truly up to a rolling boil before you mix this in, it'll last longer. And if you mix a little, you can mix a low end or a high end amount of this powder into the water according to the directions. If you put in the higher end amount of powder, it'll make a more solid cube. So some tips to helping Repashy last a little longer. The last kind of food is live foods. I understand not everyone has access to live foods. Maybe you just have a pretty tank in your living room and you don't have a whole fish room where a whole corner is like, we're gonna make live food here, right? I get it. But if you can, these are brine shrimp eggs. You can hatch these and you get these tiny little baby brine shrimp, and fish up to about 2 inches love them. They're highly nutritious. None of the nutrition has been degraded through processing or through freezing or any of that. Also, they move around and the fish's natural kind of hunting instinct kicks in. So it's an enrichment opportunity for your fish. And there are fish that just are hard to feed. And sometimes getting some live food in there that's moving around will trigger them to start feeding as you're getting them used to eating the other foods that you want to kind of feed regularly. So brine shrimp are good, scuds are great. You can often buy blackworms at your local fish store. That's great. Now, there's some people out there that say that blackworms are bad for your fish and carry disease and all that. I've been using them for almost 30 years, never had a problem. So that might be true, but I think I would have run into it in 30 years if it was a problem. The ideal way to feed your fish is a variety of foods and a variety of types of foods. Some pellets, some flakes, some frozen, some live, maybe some gel foods. Mix it up, give them a variety. It enriches their experience and it makes sure they're getting a proper nutrition profile. And with live foods, I understand they can be a hassle, but if it's as simple as going to the pet store once a week or once every 2 weeks and buying a few blackworms and giving your fish a little treat once every week or two, that'll go a long way to making the fish happy and filling in any nutrition gaps that you're missing. Anyway, that's how we feed here. It's a lot of different varieties, but it works. It makes the fish happy and healthy. So thanks for watching. If you want more, we do a live stream every Wednesday at 9 o'clock Eastern time, where you can get on and we can talk about fish, answer any questions you might have. If you want to know about specific food or nutrition, we can get into that. So anyway, thanks for watching. Until next time, hope you have a good one. Bye-bye. I don't know if my chair is squeaky enough. Maybe I need to get more squeak on it.